Welcome to Salvage, a podcast for conversations with artists about the repurposed materials they use in their art practice. Please enjoy my conversation with Kim Thomas. Kim's works are a visual discussion around climate change, nature, and our insatiable consumer culture. As an intersection between all three issues, found single-use plastics are often used as a key material in her artwork. In manipulating the debris through a variety of media, primarily sculpture, installation, and printmaking, Kim presents the viewer with an everyday object in an unexpected new form. It's nice to meet you.
Yeah, same here.
I am in awe of what you're doing. It's
Oh, thank
really
you.
quite amazing. But I would love to know what were you doing before you were working with the plastic bags?
Oh, I'm gonna have to think back pretty long. The origins of the plastic bag started right before I went to grad school, and I'm kind of non-traditional in the sense that I came from a background where visual arts wasn't really encouraged in my household.
Okay.
So undergrad, I was told I could major in anything I wanted except for like English and art. And
Oh,
those are the 2 things that I'm, like, so excited about.
oh,
So, I chose corporate communications
oh,
just
wow.
I had an interest in science, and I did that for a while. But I quickly learned that, like, even though I took calculus in high school, I really did not know what I was doing in math. That was not my strong suit
I
at
can connect with you. Math class made me cry.
Yeah. So I quickly was like, "Okay, what can I do?" I took one drawing class, as an undergrad, and I majored in corporate communications, got my first job out of, um, undergrad as an ad assistant at
Okay.
a local newspaper, and eventually taught myself how to do graphic design
Oh,
and be
wow.
a designer for them. Of course, that love of art always kind of peeks its head in. So that was kind of my outlet for art for a while. And I actually thought I was going to go back and pursue a formal degree in that. But then things started to shift. This tells how old I am. It started to shift more towards web design, that sort of thing,
Mhm.
rather than print media. And print, for me, that kind of more hands-on,
Mhm.
I love. But the whole abstract kind of coding aspect of web design, again, like with the math, I just sort of shut down. I'm like, "Meh, not for me."
Yeah.
So, I took more classes in, like, art foundations at a tech school. And I was like, "I love this. I'm addicted." And so I pursued my master's, and, during that time, I was also making art in my studio at my home. I
Mhm.
had, like, a little garage set up, and a lot of that was painting based,
Mhm.
but I started to play with the bags then.
Uh-huh.
But I was doing things like attaching them to a surface and then coating it with paint, things like that to kind of experiment with the textures.
Mhm.
And then when I got into an actual grad school program, one thing led to another, and I rediscovered crochet, and that became a dominant like form to create like an actual thing with the bags.
Mhm.
So yeah.
What drew you to the bags first before you even got to grad school? Like, what made you think I can paint on this?
Yeah, that's a good question. Um, well, I'm from the coast, South Carolina, here in Charleston, and just seeing the impact of plastic bags. And for me, it's just insane that
Mm,
we use them. It's total
agreed.
insanity. Um, and just seeing them tangled up in waterways, on beaches, of course, that was more true then than it is now. It's at least in our area. Charleston itself has done a bag ban for at least, I don't know, 5 years now.
Uh-huh.
But still, right up the road, they're commonly used. Um, but I was like, what can I work with that has to do with the environmental impact that we're seeing?
Mhm.
Um, so climate change, plastics, something along those lines. And what can I use that's virtually free or totally free?
Mhm.
And that's when I was like, well, plastic bags, they're everywhere. They're a problem. That's my answer.
Got it.
Yeah.
Wow. So then in grad school is when you started making installations and crocheting assemblages for with plastic bags?
True. Yeah. So during one of my first critiques with one of the advisors there, he literally came in and he was like, well, this stuff that you're doing on the wall, that's kind of working because I had them kind of tied together. And then I had some other pieces that I had done with the paint, and he was like, "These aren't working." And then he was like, "I want you to look up one word, Plurn."
Ah.
And then he left. He wouldn't show me, he wouldn't tell me anything else. So I Googled it that afternoon and I was like, "Oh, you can crochet with this." And as a kid, I had learned to crochet from my mom and my great aunt.
Mhm.
And I never really made anything but like pot holders or very basic things. I can't do more than a straight double stitch now. I don't get real fancy with it, but that's all I really need.
Right.
So, yeah.
Wow. So did you go apply to your master's program telling them that you were gonna be working with plastic bags? I mean, how does that work? Like, just curious,
It's been a
like,
while.
what master program is gonna be like, "Oh, yeah, sure, you can work with plastic bags."
Right, right. So I'm pretty sure I did present it with an environmentalist angle.
Mhm.
Um, because honestly, I don't think they'd let me in otherwise. Like I said, with my graphic design background, I did have work in my portfolio at the time that was um strong on that side,
Mhm.
but it was a fine art program, not a graphic design.
Right.
And I did some collage work that was decently strong. It was interesting work, but um, it correlated loosely in that it had some found objects.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Interesting. Wow. That's
Yeah.
so cool that they let you do a master's program. I mean, yeah. Every
Yeah.
now and then I think about, "Oh, I would really love to do a master's," but I think it's
Well,
not in my wheelhouse anymore.
I there's a couple of things I think about that. We had one person in our program, I don't know, he was older, so he's probably in his 60s now at least, and he knocked it out. I mean, he's a fantastic artist anyway. Carl Moore in Memphis, he's just phenomenal. Everybody, honestly, in our program was impressive. So I
So,
don't think there's a cap on that, on
no,
age.
I don't think there's a cap on age. It's just, I think personally for me, well, first of all, paying for a master's degree would be a
Yes,
stretch for me. Um, and then finding the time to do the work. Like, I don't think I could go to a school that's far away. Like I have family. I can't really
right.
fathom being away for that long. So it would have to be local and I would have to squeeze it in with what I do to earn a living. So I'm just
Right.
don't I just don't know that I could do it. I would love to, but I don't know
Yeah.
that I could.
It just so happened at that time in my life that, I was single. I hadn't had my son yet. The timing was just correct for me. And honestly, the cost is something I'm wrangling with. I think there's so many opportunities these days for professional development that doesn't necessarily include the MFA
Mhm.
structure or the MFA depth. You know,
Agreed.
I'm still paying for my student loans.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's why I teach public school now.
Right.
It's in the hopes of getting it forgiven. Knock on wood that that's not gonna dissolve because I'm so close.
Oh, oh God.
So,
So
yeah,
what made you go into teaching school art in schools?
right. So when I moved back to Charleston after grad school, I was working as an adjunct professor um, at College of Charleston in the sculpture department and also our local tech, Trident Tech. I did art appreciation, intro to design, things like that. And it's fun. I loved it,
Uh-huh.
but it doesn't pay well at all. Like at all. Um and you don't get benefits, any of that.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
I definitely needed a more structured salary, structured days. So I knew, like with the adjunct thing, if your classes don't get full, you may have 3 classes or you may just end up with one per
Oh, wow.
semester. Don't know. So that wasn't very sustainable.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So did you have
So
to get a teaching certificate of some sort, or was your
I
master's
did.
enough?
So here, well, kind of both. Here in South Carolina, we have an alternative certification program where if you take the praxis and you've got your at least your BA,
Mhm.
you know, a degree in that field, you can get kind of on the job training
Oh, excellent.
as a teacher as you're being trained as a certified teacher.
Mhm.
So I did that and it's like boot camp. It's it's not for sissies at all.
Well, teaching is
It's
not for
one of the
sissies.
hardest things I've ever done, aside from being a parent. So, yeah.
What grades do you teach?
I teach high school now. Yeah.
Okay.
I've done a little stint in elementary school, and while I love their enthusiasm, I'm way too much of a nerd. I just go down the rabbit hole of, like, contemporary artists and what they're doing and why they're doing it and all that stuff, and I'm just, like, blown away by that stuff. So I find ways to sneak that into what I do now with high schoolers, and they kind of get it.
Yeah.
Whereas elementary kids are like, huh?
Yeah.
What? Yeah,
Wow, that's amazing. So tell me about the work that you do. So your weavings or crochetings, they're very abstract.
they are. And
Why
that's
abstract?
intentional.
Intentional. Okay.
For me, it's intentional because I feel like I don't want to tie the material to any particular object. Like, I could shape it into a marine animal or something like that,
Yeah.
but for me, that gets very specific, in particular for people who don't live along the coast. Like, I made this work at first in Memphis, and,
Oh,
yes,
okay.
there's the river, but, there's not that tie there, and I wanted to keep the work open to more of a personal interpretation. So when people look at it, I want them to really concentrate on the materiality, what it's made from, those little peaks of logos and things like that on
Yeah.
the material, and notice those things and where those things pop up in their own lives.
Wow.
So
So when you exhibit your work,
Mhm.
what do people tell you? Regular lay people, not artists.
Yeah, yeah. They usually are like, "Wow, how long did that take you?" And I've got almost that many bags in my kitchen or whatever, and I'm like, "Yes, that's the issue, maybe think about it." And a lot of people have told me that since they've seen my work, they've stopped using the bag altogether.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
I had a woman and, like, I've got, a show in Park Circle Gallery, which is in North Charleston, right up the road from me, and the, um the lady who works in the gallery, she was like, "Yeah, I've stopped using the bags." So,
Oh, that's
it's
great.
just those little things to, kind of awaken people.
Yeah. And where do you get your bags for this?
So, that's a great question. Like I said, here in Charleston directly in the city, most places, there's a band on them.
Mhm.
But up the street in North Charleston, Somerville, surrounding areas that are part of the greater metropolitan, they are widely available.
Mhm.
So I just go and raid those recycling centers, or honestly, the best source lately has been my own school.
Oh,
I'll ask teachers, I'll ask students, and sometimes I do put it under the guise because I need it for that too. Under the guise that, hey, we're doing ceramics and
mhm.
we need some bags for that. And
Right.
they'll just end up bringing me all the bags.
Yeah.
They're like, do you have enough? I have more if you want enough. And I'm just like, come on, bring them, whatever.
So
Yeah.
do you use anything other than shopping bags?
So, yes, lately, when I say lately, I've probably in the like last 4 or 5 years, I've been incorporating things like mailing packaging, like the Amazon bags, mailers, yes. So, those add a different texture, and I think, again, once people recognize them within the form, they realize the impact of those as well.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I mean, there's so much plastic packaging. I mean, paper towels come wrapped in that plastic.
right.
Bread comes wrapped in that plastic. So I use all of that. So I was wondering if you use that as well.
I've started like, of course, for me individually, I try to cut down on things like that, buying
Right.
things like that. But there's some things that's just a little bit unavoidable, at least for me at this moment in my life.
Mhm.
So, say a pack of tortillas or something,
Yeah.
I'll use that bag and
Mhm.
cut it up. Or we get frozen organic blueberries for smoothies,
Yeah.
and I'll use that bag after we're done.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it tends to work out pretty well. It adds nice extra texture. And again, it's just those little things that get people thinking
Yeah.
about their own choices.
Agreed. I mean, that's what I hope is the first impact of seeing my work as well. It's like,
Mhm.
"Oh, where did you get this?
Yeah,
Oh, it's everywhere. Oh, yeah."
yeah. I've got it in my house.
Yeah, yeah, wow. Yeah, so whenever I, am working on a bigger project than than the material I need more materials that I can gather in my own house, people supply it almost instantly. I mean, it's
Yeah.
the people are, like, excited to collect it, and then I have to tell them to stop when I'm done with the project
Yeah. Yeah.
because there's no room to store it all.
That's my next bigger challenge. I live in a condo, like I mentioned, with my son, and we don't have that much space. So I'm
I was gonna
quickly
ask where
running
your
out.
studio is. Is it in your condo, in your
Yeah,
home?
basically. I mean, I am a teacher, so during the school year, I'll work on things both at school and at
Oh,
home.
cool.
But if it's something that I really want to have access to all year round, I've got to keep it here for now.
Yeah.
So I'm exploring other options for that.
Are there, I mean, I've been to Charleston once a long time ago, so I never really, I didn't look at it from an artist point of view. Are there artists collaboratives or buildings? Like here we have where I am, this is an old factory building, and there's businesses and artist studios in here. Do they have things like that down in Charleston?
They do. And it's slow growing, but there's two art centers. There's
Oh,
Redux Contemporary Art, and they've got about 35 studios there.
oh,
And
excellent.
they run like three different exhibition spaces. They've got a residency program now,
Oh, cool.
amazing space. Um, and then there's one in Somerville that just opened under 5 years ago
Mm.
called Public Works. And they've really done an amazing job with that space as well.
Oh, that's excellent. I'm glad to hear that.
It's very limited. It's kind of in its infancy as far as um, being able to support the amount of artists that are here.
Mhm.
Um, Charleston, that's a whole different conversation. It's known for its beauty, its history. Unfortunately, when most people come to the city for vacation or whatever, they're exposed to kind of the more mainstream galleries downtown that feature, the local beaches or the marshes, which I'm not cutting that work. It's amazing.
Yeah.
We should celebrate our local beauty, but there's actually a lot of very impressive work that's going on here right now. We've
Mhm.
got some great artists. And I was having a conversation last night with 2 or 3 other artists about starting another space.
Oh,
So, I mean,
exciting.
that's just kind of an idea in its early forming stage, but
Right.
yeah,
Oh,
we've
but
got
that's
enough
exciting.
energy here to support it.
Oh, that's great. Wow. It's very exciting. Wow. Um, I was wondering if you can tell me about your forever installation and forever specimens. How did that get started?
So, that idea came to me after a visit on the beach a
Mhm.
few years ago, and for several years prior, I had been contemplating how can I give a more positive angle to the work?
Mhm.
Because when you look at the material and you look at the rate in which we're producing it and how invasive, how problematic it is, it's overwhelming. So, what can I do to bring an element of hope into the work?
Right.
And I had this idea of creating a giant word-based project. And
Oh.
it took me a while to arrive at the word forever.
Mhm.
But for me, it's like a giant SOS,
Yeah.
except it's got this little bit of optimism in that if we want these things to last forever, it's in our hands. We can, they can, but it's up to us.
Yeah.
And when I did the first installation, that was out in Johns Island, which is local, and it's a more rural, woodsy area.
Mhm.
So I gathered materials there and built up each letter out of like one letter out of sticks, the next out of branch or pine cones, the
Mm.
next out of leaves, things like that that I gathered myself from that area.
Mhm.
And the installation for those are around 35 feet.
Oh, wow.
I quickly learned that I needed a drone to document that.
Yeah.
So for that project, I hired someone and he actually is local. So I got his recommendation. I was like, So I'm gonna need to buy one of these eventually. What would you recommend? So he's kind of pointed me in the right direction.
Oh, good.
I finally purchased one, and fingers crossed I'm going to be able to document my own next month in Colorado.
Oh, excellent. Oh, I wonder if you can document your making it as well.
That's a good question. So parts of it, yes.
Yeah, that would be exciting to see
Yeah,
how you're actually making it out there from up above. That would be
right,
yeah.
right. But um last year I got the opportunity to do one in Kansas during a residency out there.
Mhm,
And when I initially went, I was thinking I'd build up material on the ground like the first version here.
mhm,
But responding to this field of grasses and all this lush wildlife there, I got the concept of cutting in the word. So I
uh-huh,
used a metal rake, garden shears to kind of flatten out the grass and then trim it to form the letters.
mhm.
And I made that one much larger. It was like almost 100 feet.
Oh my
So
goodness, wow.
that was really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess depending on where you get to do this, you have to adapt to your environment.
Yeah.
Literally.
So I'm very excited. I've never been where I'm going. So
Oh, wow. So where in Colorado is this going to be?
it's going to be just south of Colorado Springs. It's on
Oh,
the very southern edge.
I'm actually going to Colorado this summer as well, and I've never been before, so I'm excited.
Me neither. So yeah, it'll be fun.
Uh,
Um, I'm looking forward to it. It's a high school friend's property, so it's kind of private land, but
uh-huh.
that also allows me to do whatever I want. So
Yeah, that's very exciting. Oh, I hope
very
you document the heck out of it, and so it's all
yeah,
shown everywhere. That's fun. Oh,
yeah.
when is that? When are you doing that?
So that'll be, let's see, July 11th through the 17th.
Oh, so coming up soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And usually to build the actual installation only takes, I say only, but usually it takes me like 2 days
Right.
and not the solid day, sometimes almost, but
Uh,
usually like 4 hours each day.
uh-huh.
And then, and then I can document.
Right.
So
Oh, well, I look forward to seeing those that documentation.
thank you. Yeah. So do I. I'm excited.
And what about your forever specimens?
So that was a more experimental uh installation that I did. That was kind of the first piece. And I did it on a shelf during a residency here in town, the Redux
Mhm,
residency. And I wanted to see if there was a way that I could correlate the plastics with the natural
mhm.
kind of evolution of things. So I had an area that was more lush and green, and then more like industrial clean plastics, and an area that was a little bit more decayed and eroded of natural items, and then plastics that I had gathered, or actually, no, those I didn't personally gather. I worked with local organizations, so I worked with Charleston water keepers. They do
Oh,
a lot of marsh and river cleanups here.
uh,
And because I had a small kid at the time, he was like barely 3 then, um, they saved the items for me that
oh,
year.
that's great. Wow.
But I've done a lot with them in the past.
Mhm.
And so those items were kind of, had the patina, if you will,
Yeah,
of all the marsh life.
yeah.
And then on the very end, there's the more sand beach element.
So the
So
lush green ones, were you actually watering the plants and keeping them alive in there?
that's a great question. So I have evolved the project or other installations where I have used live plants that do require watering, but that one I didn't keep up that long.
Okay.
So I didn't water that one.
Okay.
That's sort of a growing edge for me is working with the live element. And I've done a couple of projects recently. Um, let's see, for the public works show that we just did this past winter, me and another artist here in town, Bosley Palkahake, we placed little saplings or seedlings, honestly. They're not even saplings yet, of pine trees
Uh-huh.
in soil, which was in mine were all in Amazon bags, like
Uh-huh.
you just showed me,
Yeah.
the ones that things ship in.
Yeah.
So she had used other plastic bags and we kind of co-created this work. Um, and then for my latest show over in Park Circle, I've used the little strawberry containers, the
Yeah.
plastic strawberry containers as a receptacle for, honestly, just found weeds. I've worked with another biologist here locally that helped me identify
Uh-huh.
what could possibly work well and not die.
Oh, that's cool. Okay. Uh-huh.
He was a great help with that, and so far, knock on wood, they don't look amazing and that kind of decay I can kind of expect,
Mhm.
but they're still alive, and
Okay.
I plan to, like, take them back once the show's over.
Right. Oh, wow. And how long is this show?
The one here in Park Circle, the closing is this Friday.
Oh, okay. So it's coming to an end. How long has it been going on though?
They do month-long installations, so
So
yeah,
far you've kept all those specimens alive for a month.
a little over a month
Yeah.
because I wanted at least a week. I think I got them like a week and a half, 2 weeks before,
Uh-huh.
just to kind of make sure that they, you know, could potentially survive.
Right.
Have yeah.
Yeah, that's so brave of you working with live plants and mixing that with plastic. Um, wow. Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, like Rasheed Johnson, who else? Mary Mattingly, those folks just, like, blow my mind, and I'm just like, "One day, I'll have it tweaked just enough," you know? So, it's
Wow.
still very much a growing edge for me, but it's been fun,
Mhm.
and, of course, a little bit anxiety inducing.
Yeah. Well, we gotta keep ourselves on the edge, right? And in the excitement too, right? Need that anxiety. Oh, tell me about your monoprints.
Oh, those are fun. So, during my time in grad school, I started let's see, yeah, it was the first semester I took a printmaking class because in my brain, I was like, "Oh, I'm coming from this graphic design background.
Mm.
This will be sort of a normal, easy correlation." And everybody was like, "Don't do it. Don't do it." It was the professor. She was so tough. And I literally had the toughest time with that class until she and I kind of got to understand each other and she got to understand my work. And then I was like, well, these are the things I'm making and in the studio for my work here. And she was like, oh, okay. And then at that point in the semester, we had gotten to color graphs. And so we were doing pretty textured work with that.
Mhm.
And I was like, let me just see what happens if I ink up one of these forms I'm creating, the crocheted forms,
Mhm.
see where that goes. So I started out with that. And then quickly I was like, well, let's just see what happens if I ink up the whole bag. And so that that kind of had its origins, and those are really fun because as they go under the press, they tend to make these nice little poppy sounds, um, to surprise everyone else in the studio. They're like, "What was that?" Um, so they think you're doing fireworks or something. Um, but no, it's all good.
So do you still make them?
Yes, yes. So during again, I can't say enough about Redux, but during that residency, they have a great press. It's nice size, large format. And what I wanted to do during that time that I had never gotten to do during grad school, and I don't know why, I was so focused on bags themselves. But during that particular residency, I was like, I wonder what else plastic wise that I can get a good print from. So what I would do is I would go on walks in that area, just along the street, because it's more of an urban environment, and I'd collect plastic trash.
Ah,
And I really found that I like the single-use plastic cup lids and straws and bottles, water bottles do very well as well. I
mhm.
get a nice little embossment from the water bottles.
Oh.
It's kind of exciting, um, for me at least. But I find, particularly with the water bottles, is they have this texture that's almost like an animal print,
Mm.
very much like something you would find in nature. And I found that with the bags as well, is like part of the reason we don't perceive them as that much of a threat is because they do have this mimic like quality of almost being natural.
Ah,
And they are almost natural. I mean, petroleum does come from the earth.
right, right. It is a fossil fuel. I know.
Right.
It's crazy that we think that they're natural.
Yeah. And like the ones that we make brown to make them look more
Yeah, like
it's
what?
yeah. So it's just been really fun to experiment with different items and seeing what the resulting print is. I've got a friend here in town. I mentioned her, Bosley Falcag. She does monoprints as well, but she tends to use things that aren't that recognizable. They're
Uh-huh.
just shapes. And those are interesting, but for me, I like to use something that again, that viewer tie back to their own lived experience.
So
It's
you
pretty
want your material to be clearly recognizable.
yeah, at least on some level. It's surprising to me when I show particularly the bottle prints to like my students. And at first they'll be like, "What is that a shoe?" And I'm like, "No."
So do you find squished water bottles to do this with? Or you
Yeah,
squish them
either
yourself?
both.
Mhm.
I've found ones that have been run over or stepped on, or I'll just take a moment and roll them through the press first,
Uh,
flatten it out
yeah,
really well, and then ink it.
yeah, yeah.
So,
Yeah, I know that once the bottles are crushed, and even aluminum too, you can't put them into recycling, like, they need to be whole in order to go through recycling, at least around here. But I frequently find squished bottles and cans, and I find their squished shapes very intriguing. I have a small collection growing. I haven't done anything with them yet.
uh, yeah. And that could potentially be a whole nother work of art is kind of that compression shape.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
uh,
there's just for me, there's endless directions it could go in.
yeah. So what are you working on your studio right now?
Right now, again, I'm getting ready for that trip.
Right.
So today, potentially, or later on this week, I'm going out to John's Island where I built the the installation for forever
Mhm.
back in the fall, and you can still see a little bit of it.
Oh, that's cool.
So not only do I want to just take the drone out for practice
Yeah.
and, you know, get my skills together, but I do want to see what it looks like before and after.
Yeah.
And eventually, kind of at your point of watching it being built and created, I would love to do one where I can document it potentially weekly or whatever,
Yeah.
see the erosion.
Yeah, that would be fascinating. I
Yeah,
agree. Yeah. I guess you would have to do that somewhere closer to home.
exactly. I need to get into talks with potentially even local parks.
Yeah.
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 So
There are artists doing that kind of ephemeral art in their local parks. So
yeah.
maybe you could do that. That would be exciting. So do you engage your students in your practice, or at least in the plastic pollution aspect of it somehow?
Somehow. I am in the South and we are going through quite the change politically.
Mm,
So I'd say in recent years, I've been less vocal unless I'm doing something that involves like a publication. Yes, I'll share that. If I'm doing an exhibition, I'll share that. Um, and I do have smaller projects that um, deal with actual science. Like I do a ceramics project where we focus on coral bleaching.
ah,
So
mhm.
things like that. And, I am who I am, so I'm going to sneak it in some way.
Yeah,
But it's more of a tenuous situation, to be honest,
yeah,
right now in the South. So,
yeah, I would think so. It's not easy to bring those kind of projects into schools in New York either. I mean,
yeah,
yeah, I'm not an art teacher in a school, but I have been proposing art projects to teachers and art teachers in local school to bring in me as a visiting artist to do a project with plastic for the kids to make them aware. And there's been a resistance to that. I mean, as you, I'm sure, can agree, art teachers have a curriculum that they have to follow, and they only have the bandwidth to add anything else is probably rather narrow. There's so much to get done, right?
we yes and no. We do have flexibility, or at least here in our state.
Mhm.
Our standards are kept, thankfully for now, pretty broad.
Oh, good.
So we are given some range with that.
Mhm.
But again, like I said, politically, Moms for Liberty, groups like that,
Yeah,
uh, it can get a little dicey.
yeah, yeah,
So it's, one of those times where you advocate in smaller ways, personally at least.
yeah.
Uh, for example, if I see kids with water bottles and after we get to know each other, not like the first day of the semester, after I've known them, I know what they're like. I'll say things like, "Do you know what percentage of those actually get recycled?
Mhm.
Let's look into that real quick." And they'll be like, "Oh my god, it's only like 2%?
Yeah,
Wow."
um,
I mean, the fact of the matter is the US doesn't even have the capability
no,
to recycle
yeah,
plastic.
yeah. No, the recycling system is just a farce.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, I grew up with conservative parents, but they were advocates for recycling. But the whole plastic thing is just
yeah,
it's greenwashing on the extreme.
yep, exactly. It is. It is. So we need to keep making art with it and
Yeah,
putting them out there, I figure, right?
sure. until they stopped making it. I was always asked that in grad school, and this is well over 10 years now. Um, at the time, San Francisco and other larger areas had started banned bags or bag bans, excuse me.
Mhm.
And my professors were like, "What are you going to work with once all the bans are in place?" And I was like, first of all, I'm going to celebrate.
Right.
You I'm gonna be happy for that moment.
Yeah.
Second of all, I don't know about where you're from originally, but where I'm from, it's gonna be slow to change.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, yeah,
Yeah. Now, when the bag ban first happened in New York State, all my friends and, just random people who would see my art would be like, "So now what are you gonna do?" Like,
yeah,
I think I still have plenty
yeah.
of plastic packaging, even if it's not a plastic bag.
Mm,
But yeah, I was like, I'll be happy to switch to something else. Not a problem at all.
right. I mean,
Yeah.
my work's at a point now where, yeah, I'll gladly switch,
Yeah.
but I don't see,
Oh,
see
no. I mean, we've had the bag ban for quite a few years here, and still you find bags. You go into a random little store and they'll before you even have a chance to say anything, they'll put it in a plastic bag for you. It
yeah,
happens less and less, but it still does happen. So,
same here, same here. Yeah,
so
even in Charleston. Directly, there's, like, mom and pop stores or whatever that, for whatever reason, they'll still have them. I don't know how that works,
it's not being enforced well
yeah,
enough. Yeah.
but we do have places, that are straight up, like, we just don't do bags at all,
Oh, good.
so,
Yeah.
are you good with carrying it out? Because here you go.
Yeah. That's
Mostly
great.
they're, like, the secondhand clothing places and things like
Right.
that.
Where you could probably get a bag anyways, buy a bag, right?
Right, right, so,
Wow. Well, thank you so much, Kim. I loved having this conversation with you. That was awesome.
thanks.
Yeah. Thanks for listening. All the links for everything we talked about are in the show notes, and I'll see you again next time. This podcast was created, produced, and edited by me, Natalia Korover. Theme music by R.C. Gaida. Find out more about me at artbynatalia.com. Find out about my community at repurposercollective.com and about my kids' education initiatives at ecoloop.art. Thank you for listening.